So, welcome to the Take It to the Max podcast, where we dive into today's latest trends and technologies shaping the business world. I'm your host, Chris, and today we have a very special guest with us. Knowing today's guest is a bit of a petrolhead like myself, and he's taken time out of his busy day, it only seems just that we give him a good introduction to his welcome. So, some say he constantly wears silk pajamas all the time. Even now, under his clothes, he's wearing his silk pajamas. Is it Ross Hammond, Head of IT for Distinction Doors? Welcome, Ross. It's great to welcome you today.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Excited to get this kicked off today. You know, as I love having a good nerd out about IT infrastructure.
Brilliant. And yeah, it's great to have you. Obviously, what's it been like to come back to the IT desk offices? It's how's that been?
It's been a really nice trip down memory lane. You know, some familiar faces, some new, and I really like what you've done with the place.
Fantastic.
Specifically, the coffee machine. Kudos on that.
Is it kind of like going back to your old school and kind of walking around?
Yeah, seeing your old teachers.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've left some of your paintings up on the wall that you've done and some of your work.
We remembered you.
Yeah, Ross, age 19. But yeah, no, it's great to have you here. Let's get started. So, give us a little bit of information about Distinction Doors.
Yeah, sure. So Distinction Doors, leading composite door manufacturer, been trading for over 20 years now, and the UK's favourite composite slab.
Fantastic. And in terms of number of users, size business?
Jumping nerdy real quick, on our Entra there's about 230 users, around 200 devices, about 100 of those are probably laptops, PCs, so a nice size to deal with.
That's a fair old size then.
Yeah, it's historically, as you know, more than some, once upon a time been from IT desk.
Yep.
Dealt with many different sizes, but yeah, 200 users. It's quite a sizable amount of users to make sure we're operating in a safe manner, keeping an eye on, whether it be from a security standpoint, keeping on top of your eye on tech and keeping ahead of the curve and making sure you're always enabling, moving forwards, and tech being a big enabler for that.
And as head of IT, what's kind of your responsibilities then for maintaining that? So, what's your role? What do you, and what's your team look like underneath you? How does it kind of like a day-to-day kind of job look like for you?
So, if it's got a plug on it, I'll probably eventually be responsible for it.
Brilliant. So, king of the toasters then, yeah?
King of the toaster, absolutely. But no, jokes aside, so we are a team with 2 support staff, 2 internal developers, myself, the director of IT as well, and we're responsible for not only just keeping the lights on from a system standpoint, but also hosting, maintaining, developing the internal systems too. There's an awful lot of bespoke stuff that's that we maintain from a software standpoint as well. So whether it be someone from the shop floor coming in and saying, "Hey, I've had a really good idea what we can do, can make streamline this area of the business," or whether it's simply just something like looking at newer products like Copilot or stuff of that nature, so I can enable from a high level business progression and growth.
Cool. So in terms of then the current infrastructure that you've got at Distinction Doors, are you generally majority on-prem, or do you have a hybrid between some on kind of cloud services? Is it mainly SaaS applications, or do you use Azure? How is it all kind of, what kind of as an overview have you kind of got there?
Yeah, so we are, I would say, well on our cloud journey.
Yep.
When I first joined Distinction 4.5 years ago, we were entirely on-prem. So we had 3 physical hosts. If I counted them on VMware, I should imagine 12 to 15 VMs on there, a few physicals for domain controllers, that sort of thing. And the first thing we did was moved our mail from an on-prem Exchange to 365. The file data is now on SharePoint. We've since then, it was 2023, we migrated our ERP to an Azure platform. We looked at a SaaS model for that, but due to the level of customization we have, it just simply wasn't possible. You'd have to move to quite a vanilla deployment. We're talking a significant amount of time to get to a point where we can move to a SaaS version of our ERP. But with the business drivers and the fact that the age of our host, we've wanted to move things to the cloud, or the cloud, certainly from an IT standpoint, that was our preference. It was the fastest route to mitigate any of them risks was to move to Azure. So now we've got 7 VMs in Azure. So two app servers, SQL. Separate outside of that domain, there's 2 VMs in Azure as well, which host our ordering platform. So there's an ordering portal. Then there's also a door designer as well. So one of our internal devs and design a door designer that's open, public facing. Oh, so it's hosted on our customers as well. They can embed it in their own website with their own sort of logo and marketing literature sort of thing. So you can play around and put a picture in it sort of thing, and actually design the door as if it was actually sat on your front door sort of thing. So yeah, we're well on our sort of cloud journey. There's a few lingering services on premise, which means that, you know, some stuff is still on the physical host, but with the age of it, we're well aware and well towards having plans to move them away. But pesky PCs associated with manufacturing machines means that they're thankfully not XP, but some are Windows 7. It's putting limitations in there and just sort of stretching out that time frame a bit further than we like. But as you know, I'm sure with as much as most, that sometimes it's not purely a tech-driven decision. From a financial standpoint, as much as it'd be great to throw it all into Azure or some kind of hosted platform, it'd be great for me as well, because depending if it's a SaaS thing, there's no maintenance with it. Yeah. But from a financial standpoint, we own that hardware, we own that asset in the server room. So ultimately, as much as it's 5 years old, you know, it's still physically there. You know, so versus some more operational expenditure and monthly expenditure on the Azure, it's not always, you know, can't always just jump to it as much as us in the IT department would love to do so.
And obviously with Azure, you've got the increase in monthly costs. How did that, in terms of for when you had to present your kind of case to the FD, in terms of, right, we're going to move all our on-prem stuff now to the cloud, how did that kind of case then put together then? How did you kind of look at that and go, right, how did you kind of quantify the monthly cost for Azure? Because that's one thing that we have with, granted, you're a lot, 200 plus users, a lot of customers that we're dealing with around, in the majority we're looking around about 20 to 50. And that monthly cost, especially if you put the AVDs in there, just ramps up quite a bit. How easy was that from looking at an on-prem solution and comparing it to an Azure monthly cost? How did that look for you? Did that look favourable in cost? Were they cost saving or additional costs? And how did you kind of justify that cost?
So the main driver behind it, well, it's twofold. There's a large capital expenditure. You look at the consultancy fees that we associated with installing a new host, a new SAN as well, and all the gubbins to go with it. Realistically, at the same time, you'd have to have probably refreshed the core switches too. It's easy to rack up to a bill of 100k plus. You know, it's a large capital expenditure, and ultimately, as much as it's not necessarily from a standpoint of if the business can afford the capex spend, it's the cash flow entity of it. So that, coupled with the higher resilience, the higher versatility, if we grow or we shrink, you can turn it up or down. You know, that coupled with additional security benefits we can have, then the ease of access too. So we were no stranger to opening your laptop and dialing a VPN if you wanted to work from home. You know, the headaches of supporting that is usually relatively significant, you know, because immediately you've got staff who are at home. If for some reason, you can't get onto their machine remotely, you know, or you're not in a position where you are physically in a place to reset on premise on the firewall, the VPN password, it was additional challenges. But from selling it to the board, I mean, not just from that, but the fact that we have immediate failover into a different geographical location, I think we've probably got bigger problems if a Microsoft data centers, got nuked in London. But still, even so, all those sort of factors made it quite an easy decision to say that it's more resilient. It's got great failover. It's going to be easy to use, easy to access. And hey, you haven't got to throw £100,000 plus at it just to refresh what we've got now. And if you spend all that money, it's spent. You're going to have to sweat it for 3 to 5 years at least. So in that 3 to 5 year period, you're not going to be moving, you're not going to be agile, you're not going to be benefiting from the additional tech and things that change in the industry because you're stuck with what's physically there. So, in a nutshell, when you lay it all like that, it's an easy sell. I appreciate some businesses may not respect the role IT can play for their business, whereas distinction, very much so. IT is hence why the team's the size it is, despite the amount of users we've got, very much an enabler for driving profit. That's the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's the return. The ROI is more significant if we can be more agile.
I know recently, I hope you don't mind me saying, but obviously Distinction Doors have recently acquired another business, which is fantastic news. It shows growth.
Yep.
Would you say that having your infrastructure on Azure and being predominantly a cloud first kind of thinking for the business, do you reckon then that will be a positive for you for this acquisition? Do you think this is what will enable you, help you support this growth, and is there plans to kind of soak up that into? Is it kind of now because you've got that elasticity with Azure, you're kind of thinking, well, now we've got this new entity. Are you already now thinking of going? Can this really? Can I blend it all into one? Is it now showing its worth now?
Absolutely. So the group that own Distinction Doors, they've acquired, as you mentioned, another business, and I went down a few weeks ago, looked at what they've got. It's very much a traditional sort of network. You're talking a host, some virtual machines, terminal servers for accessing their ERP solution, and although it's going to be 6 to 12 months until we can look at implementing something like that, ultimately, we've already done the lion's share of the work. There already is a hosted solution in Azure, which costs us X amount a month, and we can probably absorb the additional systems into the same deployment with, I would assume, less than 5 to 10% additional spend on our monthlies. And if I'm honest, I'll probably try it without spending anything more initially and just seeing if it creaks, because the beauty of it is if it creaks, you're only a reboot away of giving it a bit more juice.
Yeah.
And then if it does need a bit more, we're not talking a lot. We're not on the edge of having to change the discs or the grading or anything. So we're not seeing a significant chunk. So yeah, the hard work's been done. And yes, we've still got some on-premise stuff for Distinction. This other business, because I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, every step I take, I'm going to get rid of all the hardware in that server room. We're not going to have any on-premise domains. They're a very different business in regards to a system standpoint, because there's no manufacturing involved with it. So touch points on the shop floor aren't required. So it means there's less endpoints from that standpoint. But ultimately, I'm going to get them on Azure AD, all the end clients Azure AD joined. There'll be no VPNs because they've got VPNs for remote working, stuff like that. So I think saying it's archaic isn't fair, but ultimately it's definitely traditional. So you can immediately jump to the 21st century without the significant outlay, and it's all bread and butter stuff.
Do you think if you hadn't made that choice 4.5 years ago to go cloud and go Azure, do you reckon you would have had the same, or Distinction Doors would have had the same success to be able to back out the plans that they're wanting to achieve if the IT wasn't up to scratch behind? Do you feel like do you feel like your job would have been much harder if it wouldn't have been in place? Granted, Distinction Doors as part of the group, but as IT moving across to Azure, has that really helped to support you where you're going?
Yes, absolutely. Would have only got to another landmark in the business, which would have meant we'd have had to have done it at a later date. It'd have been a hindrance. At the minute, with moving from some stuff on premise, the solutions for it are getting more and more limited. And because we've already done that work, if you can just spin up another VM in Azure, another app server if need be, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if you say we need another server, you either have to, because the age of what we've got, you either have to buy physical, install it. You're talking, including external parties who support us with this stuff, a month's worth of planning. I'm very oversimplifying it, but certain things now are as simple as firing off, a ticket or something of that nature, and just a request for. You can even clone an existing VM. that's the right specification already. So absolutely, it would only be slowing down any business decisions if all of a sudden there need to be a change from an IT infrastructure perspective.
Yeah. No, I think you're right in what you're saying. I think yes, you could still do it with on-prem, but the time and the degree which, and I suppose us being in the IT world, everyone expects everything is at the touch of a button. They expect a change, a fix, a response straight away. And you've worked within IT desk, you've worked with our customers. Likewise, obviously now your internal IT, but the same request is still there, and it's expected as an instantaneous request. And and if you've then brought on and asking for changes in software or increases in the resource that you've got from Azure, then it's expected instantly. Now, I remember back when we were doing on-prem services before Azure were here, you would kind of give some room for growth.
Yeah.
Room
for growth.
There we go. We'll get it. We'll get there in the end. But yeah, some. I can't even. I'm thinking it in my head, but it's just not coming out. But yeah, we'll. But yeah, ultimately, you need that extra bit there. Is what you plan for. And you'll speak to the customer and kind of go, right, okay, where are we going to be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, planning for how long that asset's going to be. Now, and that's based on the growth that they probably previously had. But if they then acquire something in that 3-year period, if they then want to downscale, they've then overspec'd on something that's sat there in the corner of the office, chunking up all that, costing money. As though with, right, so is what you say, is with Azure, you can kind of, well, okay, actually, as paths change now, we'll shut them down. Or we'll add these on. And it just gives you that flexibility to react quickly to as your business demands change and increase. And especially, when we spoke the other week, I know we were supposed to have this podcast a few weeks ago, but obviously you got the news of the acquisition. You will then have to respond quickly and kind of go, right, what do we now need to deliver as a business? And that allows you to be incredibly sharp and competitive within your sector.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you imagine walk into a server room for the first time. There's 2 racks full of, as far as you're aware, kit. Unless you're familiar with that network, you're not sure what's that and what's doing what. Why is there that amount of switches, all that sort of stuff? And all of a sudden, you've got to absorb that in something else. If we were going down the physical route, having the two as in living in synergy is now impossible. You've messed around with site replication, linking servers over VPNs. It's messy, and it rarely works out in practice in the manner that you expect. And all that happens, if it works, it's probably slow. And most of the time, it doesn't really work in the manner that you want it to. And let's be honest, what's the odds that you spec'd out kit that's going to be physically capable of setting up in that kind of network? It's unlikely. So there'll be some capital expenditure anyway. Whereas this way, and like you say, and you can just spec up, add more VMs, whatever it is. It gives you the freedom to be reactive. And if you'd be an idiot to overspec a server to such a significant proportion to be able to absorb that additional 50 users ad hoc, you wouldn't. It'd be irresponsible. And if you did, you're sweating that for 3 to 5 years to maybe not even use the resource. Whereas, like you say, turn it up, turn it down. Hopefully, it only goes up. But you've got that freedom, and equally as well, if you're in different geolocations, physically, don't mean data centers, it doesn't matter.
Do you reckon if you looked at the cost of, say, if it were $100,000 to replace for an on-prem, and then the cost per year, and then compare that against 5 years against Azure, I'd be right in thinking that the Azure would cost more over the 5 years. That's right? But what it gives you in terms of that flexibility and growth, the responsiveness and the resilience, is something that you could not have got from an on-prem.
No.
So it's by allowing you to react, it's given the business benefits of far outweighed what the cost of the investment has been in total from where you're looking at.
Yeah, I think our monthly spends, it's between 3,500 to 4,000 just on the Azure stuff. Obviously 365, I'm not including that in this because let's be honest, very few on their own sort of host their own solutions from an email platform. And I feel sorry for anybody who still uses an on-prem file server. No disrespect to those that do. But yeah, from a costing standpoint, you're talking sort of on that basis. It's 3 years, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. You're at that sort of spend, but ultimately, there's been changes in the business that just in the 2-ish years we've been introduced or exposed to cloud services, be that Azure or 365. There's been changes that have meant that we would have had to throw capex between now and then anyway. So it's already seen yielding those benefits. Be that SharePoint, for example, or 365 licensing, it includes the pooled storage.
Yeah.
That it could not only encompass all the stuff that was on the file server. I'll exclude the marketing images on that because that's a different kettle of fish. But no, with that, but some of our ERP system now, the back end of it will integrate into SharePoint. So it's a storage location for PODs, whatever, that sort of thing, which we wouldn't have been able to do because you'd have said to me, right, can we save these down somewhere? And I'd have gone, no, you're not dumping them on the file server because that's going to be a nightmare to configure. And if you're out the office, that's going to be a pain. You're going to have all sorts of errors, X, Y, Z. And just little things like that, I'd have gone, it'd have been met, well, we like to say no until we say yes in IT.
Correct, yeah.
It'd have been met with, I'll have to look into that. This is a bit more complex than I'd want to do. Then ultimately, why do you need it? Why is the spend associated with it? But then now, instead, it's the other side of it. Not only is the stuff that's already included in our monthly spend, but there's headroom to do it.
I think the more, it's been great to kind of talk and kind of know about how Azure has helped, because like obviously I speak to a lot of customers about that, and I think from me what I wanted to kind of understand more is look at the longer term. Now you've been on Azure for 4.5 years, and I can understand now and see where, from your point of view, it's really helped you kind of be adapt, be quick, be smart, be sharp. Something and even now from user requests of wanting to change in terms of the number of files or what's being stored on there. Traditionally, looking at a physical server, you'd go, right, okay, even looking at a Hyper-V host, or you'd look on there and go, right, what storage have I got free? What can I got? Have I got any more disks available that I can put in there? Am I going to need a new storage pool? Am I going to have to look at, and if you've got a SAN in there, am I going to have to use more of that? What you've kind of done now is you've kind of got rid of that big problem that you would have had to think about and had to go back to, either us has to go back to the customer, or you go back to your technical director, to your IT director, and kind of go, we ain't got the space. Or now your is, how would you like me to store it? Do you want it hot, cold storage? Do you want it on SharePoint? Where do you want it? Your answer is yes. How do you like it now?
Yeah.
Rather than beforehand, it would have been no, we just don't have the capacity. We're going to have to upgrade. We're going to have to put some storage on. And then the worst things happen then. Then you start going, well, it's not really storage we want a lot. We'll just put a NAS on here. And then that becomes out of scope of the network. Then it don't get backed up. Yeah. And then it goes, because they said them files are important. Something happens to that NAS. And then they go, well, actually, them files were really important because I started putting these on now. And then it all starts then. And I think Azure has helped you to really kind of give a control, but also be able to say yes to people to deliver in an IT management rather than kind of. So yeah, I think that sounds really positive.
You'd think Microsoft paid us to do this, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah. So maybe we should do like sponsored by Microsoft. But I think that's been really helpful.
It makes ultimately, the way I see it is, it makes all of our lives simpler and easier. You find yourself ring fencing resource, whether it be storage, capacity, in case if we're on-premise, because you don't know where you're going, so you find yourself being really conservative. Whereas you don't have those headaches. You got the freedom to stretch those IT legs.
Yeah, make the resource problem Microsoft's problem.
Yeah,
and make your business's problem your problem to deal with. Do you know what I mean? And it just, you move that resource issue on somewhere else. It allows you then to go, how do I need to deliver it? What tools am I going to use to deliver this the best way possible?
Yeah.
Awesome. I have to ask because obviously, we briefly spoke about it downstairs, but Copilot. What's your kind of plans with Copilot's business? Where do you see that can help and add value to?
So I'm already expecting I'm nowhere near as in depth, and I'm only scratching the surface with this product. We only really use it at the minute on Edge, so it's basically ChatGPT, right? So OpenAI sort of product. But I use it, I mean, I think I was asked to write recently. It was something to our insurance. It was from the cyber standpoint, cybersecurity from just for the template, probably saved me hours. If I wrote it from a Word doc from scratch, wow. But I've personally been on a couple of Microsoft-led seminars to see how powerful it is. And I think there's tremendous amount of use, be that from a time-saving standpoint, with penning emails, finding documents, I can see that's really powerful for staff like in HR, in finance, who do reference actual sort of physical files. I don't particularly engage tremendously with file data unless I'm helping manage it. But be it organising meetings, recording the meetings, action notes off that, all that sort of stuff, extremely powerful. But for me right now, in my budget this year, £30 per user per head per month. I think I probably spent it elsewhere for now, because I think it's there's a learning curve we need to go through. I think I possibly might be able to convince me to get a license, to have a little play around with it, and that's where I might do it and go, geez, we need this. Everyone needs it, But until I try it and see the tangible sort of benefits, because like I mentioned earlier, with the from a costing standpoint, as much as from an IT standpoint, I go, let's all have it. It looks fantastic. It's going to save us loads of time. It's going to be great. From a costing exercise, it needs to be that return on investment, which I think tangibly will be there with certain departments. Other departments, possibly not. But I think ultimately, if you're using a Microsoft suite of products, it absolutely has a home.
I think, I think we've obviously early adopters. We've kind of, everyone's got a Copilot license with an IT desk, and I think generally we started originally with just key people. So essentially, the leadership team started off with Copilot licenses to kind of see what were happening. Obviously, we were using it, gone through the Microsoft training, been down to a few events. I know we've had a few guys who've been out to Reading to kind of see how to work, because obviously there's a readiness part of it. Obviously, putting it live straight into a business without doing any kind of readiness checking can be a little bit dangerous, because obviously it will only but kind of make any holes within your current setup more visible. For example, put Copilot on and you've not got some of your folder permissions right within SharePoint.
Can I see everyone's pay slips?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
What is the MD being paid? And if someone's got access to that, then come straight up. So there's an element of, it shouldn't be just thrown in there and hope that works. But I think, we've now adopted it. We've gone through the readiness, we've gone through the checking, we've got everything and we've now got it live within the business. And I think we're seeing a lot more now. I think the main thing that I think helps us a lot is the recording the transcript of the meetings, because it just gives you the action points from it. And now, as part of a lot of our projects that we do, we'll record the meetings with the customer, transcript them, and we can email them afterwards, rather than kind of writing notes throughout the meeting, then sending them through to the customer. And just that time alone makes it worthwhile a year for us to spend in that, in terms of, for example, Morgan in our projects team writing that out. And we also save the recordings of the meeting then for any future kind of, if we ever need to reference back to them, rather than writing a full project out from that initially. So in terms of scoping of projects, it really does speed things up. But again, I think we've also, more recently, we've integrated it into our into our PSA tool, which has been really helpful. I think also there's an element of, do you get a little bit lazier because then you poorly write out an email and the hope that that Copilot will save it.
My grammar's terrible. You fix it, man.
So I think there's an element there where, are we going to get too reliant on using that, and everything's going to be kind of standardized out? But I do think it's great too. I think Copilot agents is another area where we're working on. We're looking at ways where we can integrate that into our,
like a chatbot.
Yeah, in essence, yeah. So you'll learn it on the data that you've got, and I think one of the first ones because we're 9,001, 27,001, and we're trying to give it an interface now that integrate with Teams where people can kind of go, right, what's in the process or what documents do we need to, so learn it on our process and procedures to help guide people to know how we do things and what we do within the business, and is this part of the process? What is the process for doing this?
Yeah, I mean, strangely enough, in the last 12 months, I wrote use of AI in the business policy, more to protect the business because we didn't have a policy, and 12 months ago, AI was tool you might use to put someone's face on a celebrity's body. It wasn't in regards to general consumption of the workforce, but obviously from a data protection standpoint, that's in anything where somebody could copy and paste something with company data on and say reword this, and if it's not in the right tool, then it's just in the ether.
Yeah.
You'd like to hope no one use it for malicious purposes, but it's obviously something that's as scary as it is as beneficial. Now, both of us in our positions see the exciting side of it, but you're right in regards to can I see everyone's pay slips? I'm 99.9 touch wood that if someone did that and we deployed it, we'd all be fine because when we migrated all of our data, really big task of that was making sure permissions were right. We're making sure that people weren't added willy-nilly and it wasn't sort of shared. No one shared an entire site. Nothing was. No SharePoint sites can be shared externally. All that sort of good stuff. But equally as well, a good exercise that put my mind at risk would be obviously testing it, and if there's the readiness stage, that would certainly put my mind at ease. It is probably the second concern right after the cost. Now, I hope that's my Yorkshire coming out.
Yeah.
I hope that I hope that Microsoft, with the more it gets adopted, the pricing comes down. Generally, with these sort of licenses and flavors of stuff, over a trend, it does come. I mean, Azure. I mean, you go back 10 years, it was unfathomable unless you were a very large corporate, But now, we're sort of 200 user. Would you say we're on the tipping point of an early adopter? I don't know. Possibly not. I really, really don't know the answer to that. But all these things, I think, will come more ready to the masses. Well, there's all the competitor products coming to the place.
Yeah.
All right, Microsoft have got a leg up on it because they can say it's in this lovely bubble of products that we all know and love, sort of thing.
I think that's the key area where I know from why we wanted to kind of get it rolled out. We have in a lot of techies in the business. They're naturally curious and naturally inquisitive. They're looking at new tech. And what I didn't want to happen is for staff to kind of then go and use something like ChatGPT to start then, and the worst case that any confidential information is then shared. So it's like, right, okay, there's going to be a chance they're going to be using AI. We need to then control that. Copilot fitted the case of what we're after. Yeah, it has got its issues, but ultimately, in terms of what we were after and achieving, it fitted and hit the mark there. And that's one of the main reasons why we implemented. So it then we can kind of then go to staff and go, right, no doubt you are going to want to use AI. You're going to be inquisitive. You want to try it. You want to talk about it. There's going to be, this is the tool to use. This is the tool that we require, rather than going off and getting an account set up on ChatGPT and then uploading a document they'd like to rewrite that is got confidential information. It keeps it in that realm. And that's been one key thing for us why we wanted to kind of address it and get it in as soon as we can, so then everyone has got that platform then to work on. I think that brings us to a natural kind of end.
I think so.
But yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming through, Ross.
It's been a good experience.
It has. It's been good. And yeah, hope to have one again soon. So yeah, just want to wrap everything up for the podcast. Thank you very much, and yeah, tune in soon.
Thank you.